we shouldn't just live with problems and live with pain. All of us should be focusing on, hey, I see a problem over here and I have this suggestion.
Hi, this is Tricia Ratliff. Welcome to my Innovation Podcast. Good morning. I am here today with Bryan FInster from Defense Unicorns, and we are going to be talking about the importance of team structure. I think it might be helpful to our listeners to hear the size of the product that you're working on, how long they've been in place, and the challenges that you're facing with the size of the teams, maybe, and how you're solving some of those problems right now, right or wrong. That would all be really helpful for others who are on the same path, if you're willing to chat about it.
Sure. Well, I mean, the stuff that we work on right now at Defense Unicorns, we're already organized into small cohesive teams. And each one of those teams has distinct product capabilities that they are working on. So we're already organized in a way where it's not a problem where I'm working now. Before, back in, I gave a talk at QCon this year about this journey that we took in Walmart logistics. So we were dealing with a system that was 25 million lines of code. It was written in 5 different languages. There was about 400 developers organized into feature teams. We had quarterly almost deliveries. Usually it was more like 3 times a year just because of the impact of every delivery. And by impact, I don't mean good things. And the system was an amalgamation of like 4 different systems, 3 of which had been around for over 20 years. The third one had been around for like 15 years. It was absolutely nightmarish. And I was a developer, one of the senior developers in the area. I carried support pager. I had to deal with the fact that, changes some other team made, I would find out about when I was on call, right? And then try to fix them. The way that we solved that was, originally we tried to solve it with SAFe, and I'm a major detractor on SAFe for the experiences we had there and other places in Walmart. And what we did instead was we started focusing on the engineering problems we had to solve. And so we re-architected the team, started peeling apart the application, and made it so instead of delivering, hopefully 3.5 times a year, we can deliver multiple times a day on the teams that had been peeled out of that giant monolith. I saw the impact to the teams, their morale, seeing the pride they had in making their subdomain good, being good at what they did and not being impacted by some other team. The analogy I used to give all the time was like, if I'm a kid and I want my room to be clean, I'm going to clean it. But if I have to share my room with my little brother and he's always messing it up all the time, I'm just going to stop caring because it's just too much effort to keep my room clean. So it's the same with a team. A team should be responsible for all of the code they own, so that code will be good, and nobody else should have the right to touch it without their permission. That's how you get quality.
So I'm curious about the restructuring of the teams that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And the path that was taken to get there, because so many organizations will ask an outside consultant or maybe someone internally or just a manager, how do you want to restructure these teams?
That's a terrible way to go.
Yeah.
What we did was, number one, we didn't have management say restructure the teams. Management said, we want you to figure out how we can deliver every 2 weeks instead of every quarter.
So they focused on the problem to be solved.
Keep going. Amazing, right? And then what they did was we formed a tiger team of some of the senior engineers. We all had deep domain experience because knowing the business problem is really, if you're going to be a senior engineer, you should focus on the business problem and not how do I Kubernetes better. And we drew out the business capabilities on a whiteboard. Number one, we skimmed through domain-driven design. We understood the implications of Conway's law. And I'll say that a lot of people talk about, oh, you've read team topologies, and so now you're a zealot about team topologies. This is years before team topologies was ever published. We're just decent architects, right? And so we laid out all the team, the business subdomains on the whiteboard. I put a rule up that said if we have to use a conjunction to describe that domain, it was too big. We probably need to split it. Argued about what those capabilities were for a long time because of our different perspectives until we boiled down to, yeah, these are what those capabilities should be. And then we built teams around them. And we had domain diagrams to show what the interactions between those different capabilities were to make sure we didn't have one team that had a whole bunch of arrows pointed at it, if you follow me. You don't want to, we wanted loosely coupled teams that were highly cohesive, focused on one business problem with soft dependencies and no hard dependencies between teams, so that those teams could deliver their capabilities independently of any other team in any sequence. We were very successful at it, but we came at it from an engineering point of view. Not, hey, how do we reorg the organization? That wasn't our goal. Our goal was just engineering for better delivery.
So did the changes you were experimenting with work the first time, or did you have to make multiple efforts or multiple changes?
Oh no, we got it wrong. Number one, we didn't decide what all of the teams were going to be, and then reorganize the entire area. We laid out what the big chunk should be, and then decided what the first portions of the system would be that we pull apart. And so this was our main warehouse management system. And when we started implementing this, I became the tech lead for the team responsible for the receiving applications, right? And just that capability receiving. And we discovered that we made that domain too big. We had to split that domain and into like inbound document processing and freight receiving, just so we could have the right amount of cognitive load and throughput on the team, right? I mean, you're really trying to balance, you want the team to not be bored, right? but not be so overloaded that they can't get anything done and lead times are extended.
Change can be taxing for people. So how much time passed between the changes that you needed to make, and how much agency did the teams have to suggest changes?
We tried to give the teams as much agency as possible, as far as agency around how they implemented their capabilities. We tried to give them as much freedom as we possibly could. And we also built a platform team. And I say that sounds really grand, but it had like 3 people on it. They were templating Jenkins to reduce the cognitive load of creating CD pipelines. They weren't building pipelines for teams. They were building templates that teams could leverage to build their pipelines, if you follow me.
Yeah.
And gave teams as much agency as we possibly could. But we still had like top level non-negotiables that teams had to meet around. They had to have a published domain diagram of their internal structure that everybody could see. They needed to know how they connected to every other team. We had some non-negotiables around logging and monitoring for the new components they're building to make sure that they were meeting our architectural vision. But these were light touch things that were just like the minimum we could possibly come up with that were non-negotiables.
So you brought a lot of that experience with you to your new organization.
Yeah.
And were you responsible for the current setup? Talk to me about how your current structure evolved where you are today.
I don't think anybody is individually responsible for anything. I help build things. When I see problems, I bring up problems. That's what any good developer should do, right? And then over time, as an organization, we evolve into what we need to be based on what we're trying to get done. We shouldn't just live with problems and live with pain. All of us should be focusing on, hey, I see a problem over here and I have this suggestion. And then, how can we run an experiment? Let's have a discussion about it. Let's, get to something good as a group. If you just left it up to me, then you'd have all kinds of problems.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because I would only see it from my perspective, right? If we as an organization have to get together and look at what is our actual goal we're trying to accomplish. What are the problems we need to solve? Okay, now let's organize around solving those problems.
So thinking about the sheer number of problems,
Yeah.
what's the truth about how you identify which ones to solve? How do they float to the top as something that's important enough or high priority enough to work on?
Well, I mean, we have organizational goals, right? We have things that we're trying to do to make money or to not lose too much money, right? I mean, to me, the highest priority is how do we help the organization survive and thrive, right? Um, and everything else should fall out of that in my mind. I'm always focused on the business problem we're trying to solve.
So does it sort of depend on someone who sees a problem and their ability to connect it to the increase in revenue or avoiding cost or improving service and their ability to pitch, hey, this problem is an important one to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because how else do you prioritize,
Mm-hmm.
right? Look,
Yeah.
I think this sucks, so we should rewrite this application is a terrible argument to make, right? I think we should re-architect this portion of the system because if we do, I expect to see this level of improvement in our throughput or reduce in support expense or whatever it is. Tying that to an actual business goal is a good problem to solve. But I don't like the way this is formatted. Um, that's not good. I want to use a different language because I want to learn a different language. That's dumb, right? You need to tie it to business value. Everything needs to be tied to business value.
So I have an opinion here, and it's going to come out in my question. But again, I always invite you, Bryan, and anyone to disagree. Like it's really about having a conversation so we can learn
Oh, I
from it.
will.
Yeah, I know you will. That's why you got invited, right? So, so to my eye, I see that when organizations are small and there's some type of light touch relationship between those who are making decisions about where to invest or where to allocate resources, however you want to phrase it, somebody's making a decision about where we're going to spend money, who's going to work on what, right?
Uh-huh.
Somebody's got to ultimately be responsible or accountable, or they are naturally accountable for that. And when an organization is small, and as I said, if there's a light touch with those people who are in those decision-making positions, then the folks around them can be good at making those pitches and they're comfortable giving it a try, getting better. But
Yeah.
as organizations get larger, there seem to be more and more people in between where the message gets lost or
Mhm.
additional people who are hired aren't comfortable. They don't know the value system of the organization or how to get the people around them to listen. Do you have any thoughts about what to do as an organization scales, or if you were in an organization where there's a lot of hierarchy or there's a lot of separation between those who are making those decisions and those who have the challenges or problems and they want to communicate those problems directly in a way where there is a natural feedback loop?
Oh, absolutely. And so for just a little bit of background, I'm on my third job as a professional software developer over the last 30 years. Okay. I have not moved around much. First job was for a company that started at 300 people and moved to 600 people before it shrank dramatically. And I was part of that shrink because of the dot-com bust. The second job was for an organization where there was 2.4 million people working for the company. And now I work for a startup where I started on day one of the startup and there was 8 of us. And now we have 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen a lot of different contexts with just those 3 companies. The thing that is common between all 3 of them when it comes to the question you're asking is that you're not required to go through layers to get a message across. If you see an improvement thing in any one of those organizations and you can articulate it, you schedule a meeting with the person at the right level and articulate it. There was several times when, as just a staff engineer at Walmart, where I would schedule meetings with the CTO to bring up pain points we were seeing that were impacting his goal of improving engineering excellence in the organization. I was in a position where I was able to see those across teams because I was leading the dojo at Walmart, but I was still just a staff engineer. I didn't have to ask my director I didn't have to ask my manager, my director, my VP, my SVP. I didn't have to go through that chain to go talk to the CTO. I just talked to his assistant and scheduled a meeting. Right? Because that was the culture. As far as getting new people in to understand the culture, front load the culture. The defense unicorns, if you if you interview for a position at defense unicorns, you're going to get hit first with a culture interview, and we're going to be absolutely open about what our culture is, and we don't lie about it.
Please share. Tell us about that culture interview and the attributes you're looking for and how they emerge during the interview.
We're looking for highly competent, confident, and humble people, people who can collaborate well with other people, people who know that they have good ideas and know other people also have good ideas that may also be in conflict with their good ideas and can learn how to work through those and get to a better idea for everybody, right? I mean, we're looking for just people who are mission focused intensely on the problems we're trying to solve, and care less about whether a solution is theirs than that a solution exists.
And how do people come to you? How do you find them?
Defense Unicorns, follow us on LinkedIn. We're out there. We're vocal. People know about us. Follow me. I'll point you the right direction.
So generally, you find people through your natural networks versus postings.
We've done and I say like Rob and a few other people who are very good at getting our message out have done a really good job of doing that. I'll go to conferences just wearing my t-shirt. And for a startup our age, we're 2 years old, or a little over 2 years old, with our size, which, we're right around 100 people. The amount of recognition that I'll get at conferences is just shocking to me. I mean, I'm used to getting that kind of recognition when I was wearing a Walmart badge. but the focus we have on driving out good information and focus on the mission has gotten us a lot of attention.
So is it fair to say that by putting out valuable and useful information, you've become a magnet for the people that you need to attract?
Yeah. If people see you're working on interesting things and you're not just BSing things, people want to work on interesting things.
Mm-hmm. So since Defense Unicorns is small and growing, can you illustrate the types of roles that people play? Yourself, for example, are you an architect who also develops code and are leading the efforts that you're interested in? Do most team members wear multiple hats, or are they able to focus on one thing? Is that up to them? Talk to me a little bit about what that looks like there.
I mean, it's up to everybody. I mean, up to a point, right? I mean, we people in any organization, you're building teams to solve problems, right? And you can't just be on one team one day and another team another day and effectively solve problems. You need to have some focus, and that's where leadership comes in. What do? I do the same thing I've always done, which is whatever problem we need to solve, I want to help solve it. Like right now I'm working on things like everything from how do we standardize some of our GitHub security profiles to laptop policies to hey, we need a standardized way to generate documentation sites for the products we're developing. So I'm not a front-end developer, but I did a lot of theme development for Hugo so we could do that. It's just in any startup, if you're trying to wear one hat at a startup, you're doing it wrong. But then at Walmart, it's the same way, right? If you're trying to wear one hat at Walmart, you're doing it wrong. If you need to be focusing on what problems do we have and help solve them instead of I want to work on this problem.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like that's why you're looking for people in your culture who are attracted to problem solving and the mission of the organization.
Let me just say, not just defense unicorns, if you're a developer who's focused on algorithms and data structures instead of problem solving, you're doing it wrong. If you think that being really good at Go will make you a senior engineer, you're wrong. Senior engineers solve problems.
Preach it.
And if you think that testing is somebody else's job, you're doing it wrong. You know, if you think not understanding the business domain is not your job, you're doing it wrong. You don't understand what problems you're solving. You can't be an effective engineer. Sorry.
What would you say to a new engineer who maybe doesn't feel that they've mastered all that yet?
Well, find interesting problems and try to solve them is what I would say. I had a junior engineer ask me my advice years ago, and I said, don't make the mistakes I did. I got stuck in one business problem for a long time, and I'm an absolute expert at warehouse management. I mean, cool, but I needed to be solving more problems, and I stagnated for several years, and now I'm trying not to do that anymore.
Thank you for sharing that sage advice. Bryan, this was fabulous. It's always great to talk to you. I know I certainly learn a lot every time we have a conversation. So thanks again for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, Trish.
You're welcome, of course.